What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to put together an awesome budget gaming PC for 2021 and beyond. This could be the perfect build for the holiday season or a great system to try and pick up on Black Friday. I'll be walking you through each and every one of the components I chose and why, and how I managed to buy them in budget for today's video. I'll also be running you through the very important benchmark figures later. We've tested over 15 gaming titles, including Fortnite, Apex, and Valorant, to make sure this system stacks up exactly how you need it to. Before any of that though, let's kick things off by walking through the components I chose and why, after a quick ad from today's video sponsor. The legendary NZXT H1 is back and better than ever. NZXT's small form factor powerhouse delivers one of the most unique system form factors on the market, while providing great cooling and an intuitive build process. With an included NZXT AIO cooler and 650 watt power supply, this ITX chassis is truly one of a kind, and it's back with an all-new GPU riser and ready to buy. Check out our build in the H1 in the cards section now, and if you'd like to buy it, check out the first links in the description box below. At the heart of today's system is the processor, the first part we're going to look at. This is the AMD Ryzen 3 3100, an awesome budget quad-core CPU that really performs very well. I've not been recommending this a lot recently because it's been out of stock, but it's finally back. AMD have managed to pump out some budget CPUs, and I'm glad to see it. 4 cores, some good single-threaded performance makes it great for the latest AAA titles, and won't bottleneck any of our GPU or other components in the build. Speaking of other components, I'll be pairing the CPU up with this, our motherboard today. This is the GeekaByte B450M S2H, a bare bones budget motherboard with all the features really that we need. 2 RAM DIMM slots is a bit on the stingy side, but it is nice and cheap. Support for full-length graphics cards, NVMe SSDs of the Gen 3, not the Gen 4 variety, once again completely fine, and a good I/O. There is no USB-C, so if you want USB-C, spend a bit more cash, jump up to B550, and I'll link some good options in the description below. When it comes to installing the Ryzen processor, you guys have seen this a million times before, but just to remind you, take it out of the box, find the golden triangle on the corner of your processor, line this up with the top left corner of your CPU socket. There's a triangle just here. Pull back the arm, lift it up, drop the processor into place nice and gently. It's AMD, so no force, no pressure, and pop the arm back down. Once you've done that, your CPU is installed. We can move then nicely onto the RAM or the memory. When it comes to Ryzen, it's important you get a kit with a 3600 MHz speed and 2 DIMMs rather than 1. This Vengeance RGB RT kit is a brand spanking new. Corsair have been killing it recently, and this is no exception. It's even got some nice white accenting and a bit of RGB. Much like our CPU installation, installing the RAM is a pretty simple process. Go ahead and locate the notch this time rather than the triangle, and line this up with the corresponding notch on our RAM DIMM slots. Pull back the clips on either side of the DIMMs, and then you're able to drop the RAM DIMM into place, applying a bit of pressure on each side, a little something like this. Simply repeat for as many of your RAM DIMMs as you've got. For us, of course, it's just the 2, so nice and simple, nice and easy, that is installed. Now, we do need to install the CPU cooler. I will come back to that, but first we've got a bit of a decision to make, or rather, you guys have got a bit of a decision to make, and that's when it comes to what kind of storage you're going to use. You can either go for an older, slightly slower, but still around the 300-400 megabyte a second mark SSD, like this Seagate Barracuda Q1, a 2.5-inch SATA drive, or you can go a little bit more bougie and pick up something like this, an M.2 SSD. The Samsung 980 is a really great shout as far as this is concerned. You can easily pick up a 500 gig drive for about $60-70, and that would work well. Latest pricing and availability, as always, can be found below. Go ahead and locate the notch on your M.2 drive, once again on that little gold contact strip, and then we can line this up with the notch on the top of the M.2 slot on our motherboard. The drive on this system will actually install upside down, but don't let that fool you or throw you off course. Simply slide the drive in and secure it down with the pre-included screw. Once you've done that, the RAM, the CPU and the storage are all pretty much done. The last thing you want to do then is to install the CPU cooler. This stock cooler actually comes included with your Ryzen 3 processor and couples up with the included backplate that will already be pre-installed through the motherboard. Simply line the cooler up with the backplate and screw it into place. If it's brand new, it will have pre-applied thermal paste, so no need to worry. But if you've used it before or it's second hand, then apply your own tube of thermal paste. I'll link some good thermal paste options in the description below. Corner by corner, nice and slowly, kind of do laps around the cooler to make sure you get it installed. And that's pretty much it. Once you've done this then, you're able to go ahead and grab the case today. This right here is I nearly crushed the motherboard. The screwdriver has literally saved today's entire build. So shout out to this Stanley screwdriver. Without you, the system would have been scuppered.
Stanley screwdrivers, protecting your motherboards.
This right here is from Neutron Lab. It's a brand here that's available exclusively from Ebuyer. I'll put the links to this and everything else down below. And it's an awesome case that comes in at a really nice budget price point. I'll pop some great recommendations for my US viewers as well down in the description below. Something like Cooler Master's MB320Al, which we love here on the channel. This case has some of the most insane features I've ever seen at such a budget price point. Tempered glass on the front, tempered glass on the side, plenty of ventilation, two 200mm fans and RGB everywhere make it an awesome choice for today's system. Take off all the side panels now to make the case a bit easier to access, and that will particularly allow us to install the motherboard with a little bit less hassle. With the case all naked, we can go ahead and install the rear I/O shield, a little something like this, snap it in corner by corner with the audio ports on the bottom. You can then locate each of the standoffs in our case. For us, we need to make sure we've got two positioned at the top, two along the middle, and then a further two at the bottom, in these exact locations. They will then match up to our Micro ATX motherboard, which has got two holes at the top to match the case, two along the middle, and a further two on the bottom. If you need to grab a pair of pliers or an included tool to move these about, do that now, before actually sliding the board into place through the I/O shield we just popped in. The raised center standoff will hold the board into place as well, meaning you haven't got to lay the case down flat if you don't want to install the motherboard. Lovely stuff. That moves us nicely on then to the penultimate component today, which is actually the graphics card. Now I know this is the most contentious component I could possibly have in my hand. GPU shortages this year have been chronic, and they don't seem to be getting much better at all. We'll make a dedicated video discussing this shortly soon, and when maybe the GPU shortage might end. But spoiler alert, it's going to be a bit of a while yet. This though is a GTX 1650. Previously, basically Nvidia's cheapest mainstream GPU, at least on the GTX lineup, and a card that a few people would not really have considered before. Previously, you could get a 1660 or a 1660 Super for only $50 or $70 more, but now this could be a really tangible budget option. They are still a bit difficult to get your hands on, but on the second-hand market, they're pretty readily available, and because they're not very good at GPU mining, they're not being swallowed up by the miners either. 1080p gaming at medium settings while achieving 60 frames a second is more than possible on this card, and when paired with the really strong Ryzen 3 processor, it's almost a winning combo. As if that wasn't good enough, this GPU also doesn't require any external power. It just simply uses the power on the motherboard, meaning you could upgrade an old HP Pavilion or a Dow Optiplex and just drop this in there nice and easily. As I say, 1080p gaming, this thing is absolutely perfect, but we'll test this in more detail a bit later on. We need to go ahead and actually remove the second and third PCIe slots in our case before going ahead and sliding the card in. The advantage of this build is that it's super upgradable. You can pop a 3060 in here in 12 months time and have no problems at all. Here we go, nice and easily. It should give us a nice satisfying click sound, it does, and then we can screw it into place. Once we've done this, we're able to move on to the final component today, the power supply. Cooler Master's MWE500. Now in all honesty, this is about as cheap as I'd go for a PSU full stop, but it does the job really nicely with a 500 watt output, an 80 plus certification, and plenty of headroom for all of our components today, even a bit of a GPU upgrade later. If you want to go for something a little more high end, check out the Cooler Master MWE650, and I'll link that alongside this unit in the description below. We're going to screw it in the back of the case with the fan facing downwards, pulling fresh air in from underneath before wiring up our CPU power connector in the top left of the motherboard and our motherboard power connector on the right hand side. No GPU power of course today, as our system does not require it. And once you've done that, the system is pretty much ready to go. Before we boot the system up though, to test out the gaming performance, let's first take a look at how good it looks in this Neutron Labs chassis when it's all powered up and ready to go, in the only way we know how here on the GeekaWhat channel. I'll see you in a sec, but first, roll that montage. When it comes to the performance of this system, that's perhaps the biggest question when building a budget-oriented gaming PC. Well, thankfully, we've tested out a wide range of the latest and most popular titles to see what numbers we were able to achieve. As far as performance goes, that's probably the most important question when it comes to a system like this one. The GTX 1650 is undoubtedly a super budget card, making the gaming benchmark numbers that bit more important. I'll be taking a closer look into some of our games in a moment, but first, on your screen now is a summary, a snapshot view of all the different games we were able to test out and all the numbers we achieved. Looking in a bit more detail and starting off with GTA 5, here we managed to get some great numbers at 1080p medium/normal settings. 144 frames per second on average was a really great result, with strong 90 and 99th percentile results, with a game that visually looked really good. Moving on to Watch Dogs Legion, once again at 1080p medium to low settings, we managed to get just under 60 frames a second. 55 to be precise on average, with 90 and 99th percentile results, which did well to not really waver too much. Watch Dogs, of course, a brand new title, so more difficult to run on a slightly older card like the 1650. Call of Duty's Black Ops Cold War was a slightly more positive story though. 1080p medium yielded 66 FPS on average, so just shy of 70 frames per second, all told. Moving on to Apex Legends, and here at 1080p once again, we managed to achieve 100 frames a second. That's a really fantastic result and doesn't quite give you esports level frame rates, but really shoves you as far past the 60Hz mark as possible. 100 frames with 91 and 80 frames for the 90 and 99th percentile results make for a great showing and a really impressive set of results so far. Valorant is next up, and here, if you want frame rate, it's certainly going to deliver. 1080p high settings yielded 304 FPS on average, with 271 and 215 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. Sadly, the next game on the list today is one that we've tested just to give you guys the numbers, but doesn't really perform very well. That is Cyberpunk. Here at 1080p low settings, we got a paltry 48 frames per second on average. A really weak result, partly down to how kind of budget oriented this system is, but also down to how awfully optimized Cyberpunk is, especially without the DLSS tech or AMD Fidelity super effects that you'll find on the higher end RTX and RX 6000 series. Finally then, the last game we tested out today is Fortnite. Here at 1080p competitive settings, so that's everything tuned down to low, the render distance set to far, we got 164 FPS. That is truly esports level frame rates in Fortnite, which is easily the most popular game still on our gaming benchmark roster. With that being said though, that wraps it up for not only the gaming benchmarks today, but the whole video. If you enjoyed this one, you know what to do. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you soon.